I didn't even realize how much I'd been numbed out until I was able to get off of birth control and actually feel much more in tune with my body. Not having a period and not being connected to those monthly cycles and shifts actually really was disconnecting me from a whole nother level of my power. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to give a big thank you to today's sponsor of this podcast episode, Let's Get Checked. Now, when it comes to getting affordable and reliable healthcare, I know this is a big question for a lot of us, and Let's Get Checked makes professional healthcare testing easy by actually letting you do it without going to a healthcare provider. All you have to do is you go to this website, you choose your test online, and it will be delivered to you in discreet packaging within 1 business day. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available to you on an online account within 2 to 5 days. And these results are reviewed by a clinician or a member of the Let's Get Checked nursing team, and they actually can call you and talk with you through your results. And in some cases, the clinician can actually provide prescriptions to pharmacies of your choosing. Let's Get Checked laboratories are all CLIA approved and CAP accredited, which are actually the highest level rankings of accreditation. And for me, as I've been really deepening into really loving on my body more and getting more clear and connected to my body, I was really excited to use Let's Get Checked to do a full blood work analysis of my micro and macronutrients to make sure that I'm operating at the highest level optimum function, right? And so it was really easy. They literally sent me a little blood work sample in the mail where I took my blood, put it into a vial, mailed it off. Within a few days, I got a personal call from a nurse, and she was able to talk through all the details with me and help me understand exactly where my micro and macronutrients were falling. And I actually found out that I had high levels of copper and zinc in my body, which had been attributed to some of the feelings of nausea and icky sickness that I had been kind of feeling. And ever since I've been able to adjust those levels, I've been feeling so much better. So this has been a huge, huge thing for me. And it was so easy and so quick. And I didn't even have to, lean into insurance or call doctors and all that kind of stuff. It all could be done right from my home. And that's really the biggest thing, right? Is that Let's Get Checked lets you avoid those uncomfortable office visits by providing you with access to home testing and professional medical consultations without ever having to leave your home. So if you're curious and you want to try this, I highly recommend it. And actually, I'm giving a free discount code for 30% off your first test. So you can go to this website. It's trylgc.com/teal30. Again, that's trylgc.com/teal30 and use my promo code teal30 to get 30% off your first test. Now on to the episode. I know this may be just kind of diving into all the TMI, but I recently just got off birth control. I've been on birth control for the last 6 years, and I got off of it last month and have been really experiencing so many shifts within my body in my hormones. And I wanted to just take some time to really reflect on this and talk through this and be able to share a little bit more about my journey on this, to let you know that no matter what you may be experiencing as a woman, it is also common and natural and normal. And I think one of the things that I really want to help normalize is how much as women we have these beautiful, beautiful bodies and vessels that hold our feelings and our emotions and our connection to the divine. But so often it is either shut down, or it is taught or seen as being icky, or just or too much information, and just kind of basically shut down and clamped down. And the more that I'm really starting to awaken back into my body on a whole nother level, it's something that I really want to be able to share and experience with each of you and show you what it really can be like when we step into that level of divine feminine on an even deeper level. And I think what I've really noticed from this whole journey of my own experience of being on birth control and then getting off of birth control, as Spencer and I consider, starting to think about having children, is just realizing how much I had been numbed from my body. And I didn't even realize how much I'd been numbed out until I was able to get off of birth control and actually feel much more in tune with my body. And I will say that, I was on birth control for most of my 20s, and I'm actually really grateful to it. It has been such an incredible just opportunity as a woman to have that kind of freedom, right? To really be able to feel empowered in making choices that are going to support our lives for the best possible ways. But also just in the place of not really realizing how much not having a period and not being connected to those monthly cycles and shifts actually really was disconnecting me from a whole nother level of my power. And I think that's what I've been really experiencing and connecting into as I'm really kind of coming out of this week or two of actually going through a lot of emotional and hormonal shifts. I'm starting to really be in this place of like, okay, wow, there is so much more power that has been like rumbling inside of me lately that has been just kind of disconnected for the last 6 or 7 years. And I think what I've noticed the most on is the intuitiveness, right? The level of depth in being able to listen and hear what my body is trying to communicate with me. And I think, so much of my teaching and so much of my own experience has been really deepening into my more intuitive and psychic abilities from transcending the mind and coming into the heart space. But there's a whole nother aspect to it of this trinity, right? It's the mind, the body, and the soul. And we have to really make sure that we're honoring the body for all the magic and beauty that the body holds. And this is something that I haven't really talked much about, right? It's really honoring our bodies. What does it look like to really honor our body? What does it feel like to really honor our body? And how do we get to show up for our men honoring our bodies, right? And this is actually something that I'm going to be teaching on in depth inside of a brand new course offering that I'm calling Sacred Sexuality, Awakening Your Divine Pleasure Priestess. So stay tuned for that, because it is going to be so juicy, because we're going to go deep into talking about the sacredness of the body and how important and valuable it is to be able to deepen into listening and feeling the body and actually letting the body come forward as a beautiful vessel of being a divine feminine woman. But just as kind of a precursor to all of that, just really starting to plant the seeds for you to really ask yourself a few questions and get curious for yourself about, how do I feel in my body, right? Do I allow myself the time and energy to listen when my body is not feeling good? Do I allow myself the freedom to explore these impulses that can come through? Am I even aware of the impulses that are coming through, right? One thing that I really notice is how much more sensitive I am to different foods, to alcohol, to just different kinds of substances in my environment as I have now been off birth control versus on it. When I was on birth control, I could pretty much eat anything, drink as much. It was just kind of like, I didn't know the impact that I was having on my body, but ever since shifting off of it, it's been like I can actually feel my body being like, ooh, that didn't feel good to have that last, glass of wine, or ooh, that specific food really didn't feel good to my body. Maybe we shouldn't eat that anymore, and just being able to start to really honor and recognize these little tiny nudges, these little tiny impulses that are here to support you in being your best self. And as I always am speaking about how we can continue to step into the best versions of ourselves, this is something that is so incredibly important to recognize and to honor, is listening to these little body nudges, right? That are trying to help you to be the purest vessel and the purest channel that you can be for all of your radiance. Because think about this, if we are disconnected from our body, from listening to the internal pleasure pulses and the intuitive nudges of what feels good and what doesn't feel good, if we're disconnected from that, we are not fully allowing ourselves to be embodied in who we are, right? We are, in a sense, we're being her in some senses, but we're actually disconnected from her in other senses. And to be able to fully embody her on a full-scale level of mind, body, and soul, we have to be able to really recognize that our bodies are so incredibly sacred, right? That they are the homes and the vessels and the house of our spirit and of our mind. And that the way that we show our body on the external is a representation of how we feel and how we are honoring our body on the internal, and how we're honoring our spirit and our soul on the internal as well. So I would love to hear a little bit more from you and just start getting a discussion going in the comments about what do you notice about your body, right? First off, how do you feel in your body on a day-to-day basis? Do you honor yourself in listening to your body when it says and tries to communicate things that feel good or don't feel good, right? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about, right? Does this even resonate with you, this idea of listening to your body, right? And a really easy way to think about it is just, let's say, maybe going to the gym, right? When we go to the gym and we give our body a really good hard workout, you can feel the endorphins come through, right? You can feel that elated, kind of elevated sense of self, of just like, ooh, yes, I feel good today. Like, this feels great. Like, thank you for using me. Thank you for allowing my muscles to be used, right? That is your body speaking to you through feeling. And the more that we start to really honor the body, the more we're going to start feeling these kinds of feelings come through. And then equally, we can feel into when we're not honoring our body, right? When we're putting shitty food in it or putting too much alcohol in it, we can feel that intensity in the body where it's like, oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't allow me to feel fully clear and energized in the ways that I really want to be. So as we start to continue to deepen into these concepts of the divine feminine, I want to start to introduce more about the concepts of how we are treating not just our mind and not just our spirit, but also the body in the process. So comment down below kind of some of the takeaways that you've had from this video and anything that you would love to explore in the concepts of stepping into becoming more embodied in our bodies. And like I said, I'm going to be actually sharing this in so much more depth as we start diving into this beautiful new course offering that's going to be coming up very soon. And then the other part that I wanted to kind of touch base on as well is the how do we relate to our men when we are in these places of these fluctuations, right? If we really see our bodies as being these beautiful vessels that are cyclical in nature, that have vibrancy and have contraction, right? And have these kind of open and closed periods of our energy space, how do we know how to be able to interact with men, right? And I think I'm going to do a whole nother video and content on that, because this is something that I've been recognizing and just deepening into more and more. And bless his heart, my beautiful husband has just been on such a beautiful journey with me on this, and just being able to know when to give me space when I'm feeling a little irritable, and knowing when to hold me when I'm feeling sad or just kind of like all over the place. And this is going to be really, really important to start to help you to feel equipped in having the tools to recognize, like, okay, when I'm having feelings, when I'm going through these stages of hormones, how can I really communicate that in a way that supports me in my relationship, right? And allows my man to be on board with me, so that I'm not just looking like some crazy hormonal mess all the time, right? There's the crazy girl, and then there's the crazy woman. And the crazy woman does need to be honored in some ways, because this is part of the emotions of being a woman. But we can do it in a way that feels mature and responsible versus just being irrational and hormonal. And so that's what I want to dive into too. But just wanted to kind of share this intro little video on this and kind of get our juices flowing, get this conversation started, and then dive into it in future episodes. So talk to you later, ladies later. Mwah.